Welcome back. So today we are going to discuss about the poem. It's one of the famous and also my personal favorite poem written by Khalil Gibran. So you may not have heard his name, but he's an American Lebanese writer, where his work, The Prophet, is so popular that has been translated into more than 100 languages. And this poem is an extract from that work of The Prophet, the book, which is very famous. So now, what the Prophet talks about is there is a stereotypical belief about children and parent relationship. So he questions many valid points through the text. Ask them, is it right? Is it the right way to raise children? What parents, there is a general notion about parents, is it right or wrong? So there is a lot of introspection that needs to be gone into this. So that is what the whole books talk about, and also it is considered to be a very revolutionary text, as though he wrote it in early 20th century, even today, which is very much relevant, and many today even appreciate the text that is written. So we're going to quickly take a look at the authors briefly, then we will move on with the poem. The poem is, of course, it's about on children. So I'll tell you the situation, how it all started. A woman carries a newly born baby, carries her baby and goes to this prophet. He's also a prophet. Prophet, somebody talks about future, and it's like that. So when she goes and asks him, talk about the child, talk about my child, talk about generally its children, that's when the whole poem it's all about. So now, if we just take a look at this about the poet Khalil Gibran, so he was in 1883 and to 1931. So he's a Lebanese American artist, and also he was not just a poet, writer, he's also a visual artist. So his poems are considered poetic essays, as they do not adhere to the usual versification. So if you look at other poems where they have certain format, like the verses could be a blank verse, a free verse, or there are some rhyming pattern. So, but his poems are considered poetic essays. So they're in the form of poems, but they actually are essays. That's what you call poetic essays, because they do not fit into any of the versification of the poem, that regular poems. So the Prophet is his best known work and has been translated into more than 25 languages. But actually the figure is now has reached more than 100. Has been translated to more than 100 languages, including Kannada, they say. On Children is a selection from the Prophet, which offers a critique of the usual expectation of the parents regarding the children and urges them to introspect. That's what I was talking. He questions a lot of these stereotypical beliefs and conditions, whether it is true or not, should we introspect. So that is what the whole poem is all about. So when we go through the poems, we will understand what are the questions, what are the points that he stresses upon to convey what he wants to convey. So let's go ahead with the poem. Now, before we start the poem, so we have certain questions to introspect. That is, what do your parents expect of you? What do you expect of your parents? Have you ever felt your parents are too possessive and demanding, and why? So this, we all can relate these questions. I myself can connect it with so well. So suppose generally if I ask, what do your parent expect from you? So they want you to be scoring good marks in the examination, probably getting into good engineering college or medical college. So these are very, very common expectations from parents, and also they expect you to be behaving the way they want. And also many times, if you see, they try to fulfill their wishes which they couldn't fulfill in their life. They try to impose on you, so expect you to fulfill. So that these are the common expectation of the parents. And what do you as a child expect from the parents? So they want to help you, they want to support you, you don't want them to be very possessive, you don't want them to be asking a lot of questions on your personal decisions. So these are the common expectations children have. We all at some point or the other actually would have experienced it, especially if you are a single child. Obviously your parents would be quite possessive about you, also they're demanding, and you have to ask this question, why parents behave very possessive about you? Is it because they think they own you or not, or is it some other reason? Is it out of love? Is it out of really genuine care they feel very possessive about you? So these are the questions you need to ask yourselves. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, a woman goes to him carrying his baby and asks the prophet, talk about the children. So that's when he starts talking about the entire conversation between the prophet and the woman is what this poem is about. All right, he says, and he starts saying, your children are not your children. That is the first word that comes from his mouth. So, well, this is quite open statement and open to lot of interpretation, just this one line itself. Imagine the dilemma, the situation of the woman who goes with a child to ask to talk about children, and the moment he says, your children are not your children. Can you imagine the reaction of the woman? So imagine if they tell your parents that your children are not your children. So that's a quite a very deeply you need to analyze this sentence itself, because it has multi-layered meaning. There's so much to introspect. That's why this work of his has become so popular and famous. Imagine when somebody say your children are not children. What is the meaning of this sentence then? Your children are not your children. Then whose children are they? So that's the first question, right? So what he means is different. When he says your children are not your children, what he means is you do not own them. You do not have ownership over your child. That is what we'll see what he means. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. So what does that line mean is, so they belong to the future. They have their own destiny. They have their own soul. They have their own life, which is life longing itself, maybe future. They have their own life because nobody owns their life. That is what he is telling, your children are not your children. It's their own life. They come through you, but not from you. So just this preposition through and from, there is a huge difference. So that he so smartly conveys and very powerfully conveys through these very simple prepositions, simple words. What he means is, as a parent, you are just a means that you bring the child to the earth, but they do not belong to you. You are just a vehicle. You are just a means. So you bring them to the earth and nothing else. That's what he means when he says they come through you. You're just a means or a vehicle or an instrument. You're just an instrument to bring the child to the earth. Once the child comes to the earth, you do not have any rights over the child. But not from you. They do not come from you. It means they do not share anything from you. It means they may not have to have the same thought patterns like you do have. They may not have to have the same belief system that you do have. So that's what he means, that when they're not from you, but they just come through you. Your mother's womb as a vessel. It has worked as an instrument to bring the child to the earth. That's all. That is what he means. Okay. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. That's what I say. They may be with you, but don't think that they belong to you forever. No, they are the separate identity. It's a separate soul, separate body. Everything is so separate. They're individual. Their uniqueness should be celebrated, but they do not belong to you. But what happens generally is, so I'm not saying it is wrong for a mother to show that possessiveness or the love, that is required up to certain extent. But when it crosses the limit, even when the child comes to adult stage or maturity, showing that possessive in different aspects of life, different manners of life, that is not acceptable, is what he's saying. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. That's very, very important. Yes, you have to give the love, but not your thoughts. What do you mean by not giving your thoughts? You do not have to compel them or impose your thoughts on them, belief system on them. You do not teach them how to think like you. That is what he's telling. Parents should not do that, because they will develop their own thinking, own thoughts, and they will grow accordingly. That is what unique. Because if you're trying to duplicate yourself into your child, then that own identity, uniqueness dies away. That is what he's telling. Then what is the point if you go on duplicating people? You should not do that, because the child has its own life and soul. Many parents we see hearing like that, because if religiously, politically, socially, whatever views the parents have or they share, they try to tell that you need to follow this path, you need to only respect so and so people, you only need to think in this manner. So this is what as a parent you should not do. That is what he is telling. You may house their bodies but not their souls, because souls cannot be bounded, right? It is free. Everybody has their own free will. So, but yes, you can house their body, you can imprison their body, but can you imprison their mind? Can you imprison their thoughts? No, because it is boundless. You cannot control them. That is what he is telling. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not in your dreams. That's what he's telling. But can you know the future of the child? Can you know the destiny of the child? No, because it belongs to the future. The life of a child, the fate of the child, nobody knows. Even as a parent, you brought the child to the earth, you will never know the destiny and the future of the child, because their souls belong to future. That's what he's telling. Dwell in the house of tomorrow means it's a future. Because nobody has seen the future. Nobody knows. Maybe God himself doesn't know. That's what he's telling. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. That is what I was telling. Never make them like you. Never make them walk, talk, think and follow like you, because they have their own life. Yeah, you can give them love, because that's your responsibility, because you chose to have the child, and it's your responsibility until certain age the child comes. You need to give your love physically, make sure, take care of them, nurture them, provide all the necessary, fulfill all the necessary requirements. So all that is telling. Life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday, because what is telling, life never goes back or be stagnated in the same place. It always keeps moving on. The time is ticking. It always moves on. No matter what, it doesn't stop, or neither it goes backward. Will the life go backward? It's never. That's what I say. You're the boughs. This is a beautiful metaphor that he has used to explain the relationship between the child and the parent. It's so beautiful. If you see, you are the boughs from which your children as a living arrows are sent forth. What he is telling is, you're like the bow. You see in bows and arrows how when you have to stretch it far, and the farther you stretch, the farther the arrow goes. So he is comparing the metaphor. So such a beautiful metaphor if he is using bows and arrows. So bow is a parent, where arrows are children. So you need to bend yourself so much. That means you need to take that pain and stress to make sure to give a better future to your child. Better future in the sense, the more you bend, the more you stretch, the arrow goes the fastest and so swift, and it will reach the beautiful destination. But neither the bow nor the archer will know the destination of the arrows. So that's how he compares bows and arrow. And who is the archer? Archer is God himself. It's the living arrows. The archer sees the mark upon the path of infinite. Even archer, what archer is, a God himself will not know the infinite destination. That is what he is telling. And he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. As an archer, what he does is, he stretches you so far, and he bends you with all his might, so that it can be the arrow could go faster and longer. That's what it says. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. You must take all this pain and with happiness. Because all that you're going through today, it only makes sure that your child's future is bright. So that is why it's important. You shouldn't complain taking that pain and stress. Make sure you bend yourself as a parent. You bend yourself. You take that effort and pain for the bright future of your child. That's what. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. The more the bow is stable, the better the arrows reaches the destination. So don't think that as an archer, as a god, he doesn't only love the child, that arrow, he also loves the bow, because without one, another cannot function. That is what he's telling. Because what you do with just arrow without bow, and what does bow does without the arrow? So both are important, and he loves both. But yes, he bends you. He gives you that pain. He gives you that all that effort that you need to take and go through. That is very important for your child. That is what he's talking about. We can all almost relate with this, how sometimes our parents try to impose on many thoughts. I'm not saying every time they do that, but also it is also very important for them at the right stage, right situation, to guide you well as well. But that doesn't mean that actually they should force you upon anything. So that is what the Khalil Gibran talks about in this poem on children. So he's talking about. Yeah, thank you.